Planetside 3 is an upcoming, massively multiplayer first-person shooter video game. The game itself is being developed by Rogue Planet Games, which is a new team under Daybreak Game Company. What's actually interesting about the self-publishing is Daybreak Games, who we know them now as the developer behind the Planetside series, actually started as a subsidiary of Sony, but they spun off as an independent gaming studio in 2015 and renamed themselves Daybreak Games. So this would be the first game they're self-publishing if they continue to go down that route, and won't have the support monetarily or connections-wise as if they were still a part of Sony Entertainment. The last entry in the series, Planetside 2, was released back in 2012 for PC, and then later in 2015 for the PS4, and since then fans have waited to see where the team will take the game in the future and how they will utilize next generation technology. So let's break down all the rumors, canceled plans, release, and more. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description down below, so make sure to check those out and support those original writers. And with that out of the way, let's get into everything we know about Planetside 3. The first mention of Planetside 3 was from 2016 in a Reddit post, when The Division was criticized for not having as much detail in the game and that the game world was too small. A Planetside developer actually responded to the post on Reddit and said, "The primary issue we face with details are performance and memory with the engine we used for Planetside 2. Pre-alpha, we had a ton more unique textures and were higher resolution, but we had to eliminate or reduce them in order to help the game become playable in a moderate to large combat situation. Maybe when we get around to making 3, we will be able to harness some of the more recent technology to allow us to push a bit more detail and have massive battles. Time will tell, I guess." So I know this post started with The Division, but it was a Planetside developer jumping in and explaining the cutoffs you have to make if you want to have these big games. It won't always look the most amazing because you're trying to have the game still be playable, and some of that requires cutting out some of the graphics. And he does mention that if they get on to 3, referencing Planetside 3, they could use more technology to add more detail into these battles. So this post didn't directly confirm that Planetside 3 was being worked on, but it is still credited as the first official mention and started the conversation in the community of what the next entry in the franchise will look like. Then we have to jump to September of 2019 and talk about Planetside Arena. So Daybreak Games decided to release another entry in the Planetside gaming universe titled Planetside Arena. The game was a Planetside title with 2 new modes, which were a Battle Royale and a Clash mode. And in December of 2019, a producer on the team, Andy Seitz, released a letter about Planetside Arena and the future of the series. The direct quote says, "So when we think about what the Planetside 3 experience needs to be, we know that there are incredibly high expectations from all of you. Planetside Arena is intended to be the stepping stone to Planetside 3, which we envision expanding from the current battlefield of Araxis to full-fledged galactic war with empires exploding, colonizing, and conquering one another with an expansive galaxy. We envision Planetside Arena as a way to allow us to link present-day Planetside 2 and Planetside 3 storylines, as well as providing an opportunity to try out new features, styles of play, etc." And for me, this was a great way to announce that a sequel would be coming and that Arena was not going to be that game. I know a lot of the gaming community is over the Battle Royale genre, so them using this as a way to experiment with the franchise and be more of a connective piece between 2 and 3 set better with most fans than just announcing this is the direction the sequel would be going. He closes saying, quote, "So as we take our next steps on this journey, I can tell you that the team and I are 100% committed for the long haul as we continue to expand Planetside 2, refine Planetside Arena, and prepare for the future of the overall Planetside series." And the last comment was most likely in reference to the constant layoffs that have been happening at Daybreak throughout 2019. So even though there are layoffs at the company is still staying committed to Planetside and the future of the series. And Daybreak was actually still making hires for the Planetside team, such as programs, designers, and artists, even as they were letting go other people for other games in their company. So yes, they're going to still support the team, and the recent troubles Daybreak has found themselves in does not translate to Planetside. And then we have to get into all the developer changes around the game and kind of get into this new studio that started to work on the future of Planetside. So we have to jump 2 months ahead to November of 2019. Plans must have shifted at daybreak when it was announced that Planetside Arena was already no longer going to be supported by the developer due to the low player base and little general audience support. Even though the game was free to play, the game actually hit a low of 1 concurrent player before the cancellation, while Planetside 2 is still able to maintain around 2,000 to 3,000 average players. So from a pure numbers perspective, it makes sense to focus on updates for Planetside 2 and the eventual development for Planetside 3, rather than waste time on Planetside Arena when there was little interest from the community. And hopefully this taught the team that they will need to find a happy balance between what made the first 2 Planetside games great, while still providing enough new content that can bring in the general audience, and I think a lot of that comes in the form of updated gameplay and visuals, and that's what a lot of the criticism around Planetside Arena was. It just felt too dated and not like a standard battle royale, especially by 2020 standards. So if they want to bring this franchise to this next decade, they're going to have to upgrade and they're going to have to compete. And if anything, the cancellation of Planetside Arena will only speed up the development process of Planetside 3, and then we would just have to wait and see the implications this would have on the future of Planetside, and we didn't have to wait too long. The next news happens in January of 2020, when the developer announced who was actually going to be working on the game, which is going to be slightly different than previous titles. Daybreak Games announced that they were creating a new studio, Rogue Planet Games, who were being created specifically to work on current Planetside games and the future of the franchise. The exact quote said, "While the studio may be new, the Planetside franchise has been going strong for 17 years. As we begin this new chapter, we've taken several steps to prepare for an exciting future. Rogue Games will focus solely on the Planetside franchise and our dedicated community, while Daybreak will continue to act as publisher and provide live operations and infrastructure support. Rogue Planet Games owns the vision of Planetside, present and future." The post continues on mentioning how this new team has already increased the frequency of updates for Planetside 2, and that, quote, "The future of Planetside is very much at the top of mind here, and the expectations for a true sequel are, as expected, astronomical. The establishment of Rogue Planet Games provides a runway and opportunity for us to deliver vision for Planetside 3, but that discussion will happen in due time. Until then, we have a lot of great stuff in store for Planetside 2. And to me, this sounds like a good move, and it looks like the restructuring for the company did work. They created this new team, dedicated it to Planetside, and will continue to build up Planetside 2 and to bring those players back and to gain their trust, so that then eventually they can work on 3 and have something exciting to launch that players can get behind. The only part I think there could be a little bit of an issue with is if they do decide to self-publish. Daybreak before has had the support of Sony and PlayStation to help publish their games, but now if they're going to self-publish, it could lead to less marketing money, less exposure, and could lead to the game dying out quicker than some of the previous games where they did have this big company support. In a follow-up interview with DualShockers, sites once again referenced Planetside 3 and said, quote, "We have some pretty epic plans for the sequel, but it's likely a conversation for another time. When the time comes to announce and release a true sequel, the community needs to not only continue to be engaged in playing, but confident that we are the right team to deliver it." And then we can jump into what we know about the development phase that the game is currently in. So at least now it sounds like they are currently in an early unofficial pre-production phase on the game and working through the details of what the game will include. And the final 2 stories we're going to cover in this video have to do with the development of the game itself. So Sites actually clarified in an interview with Polygon that he did not announce Planetside 3 was in development during the blog post in 2019. So he didn't want the community to think just because they said Planetside 3 is a title, the game was not starting development at that point. He continued saying they're always thinking about the future, but emphasized that now Planetside 2 is still their focus. He closes by saying there will be no Planetside 3 if they don't continue supporting Planetside 2, and in due time they will be ready to talk about the future, which is Planetside 3. And the final story is from Segment Next, when they reached out to Daybreak's PR workers to ask if Planetside 3 was officially in development and if they could shed any more light on the game. And the company responded saying, "As of right now, I can tell you Planetside 3 is not actively in development. All focus is on Planetside 2. And this kind of ties together why I said earlier it sounds like the game is probably in an unofficial pre-production phase, and the studio is definitely approaching this game more cautiously, which is justified. Planetside Arena was a massive failure for the company, and they definitely have to build back the goodwill with the community. With the constant updates to Planetside 2, they've already been able to double or triple the average player base on Steam by just providing constant support for the game. So now they are building back up this constant player base who are playing and enjoying the game, while it gives Rogue Planet time to work on the next Planetside and really take their time with the project, because they can't afford for the game to be a failure the same way that Planetside Arena was. It needs to succeed, most likely for the future of the studio, and not only for the studio but Daybreak themselves. And it's probably given them second thoughts about self-publishing and if they will bring in a publishing partner to help with some of the costs. But as of now, they said no, it's not an official development, but I think unofficially they're working behind the scenes on some early drafts and ideas for the game. So what can we expect in 2021 and beyond? For starters, I wouldn't expect an announcement anytime soon on the game, especially if they're still saying it's not even in active development. I wouldn't expect any official announcement, even a teaser or revealing the game, at the earliest until 2022, maybe even 2023. That would give the team a few years to develop the title without any rush, in a most likely new or modified version of the current game engine, which takes a lot of time, and also for the next generation of consoles if they decide to bring the next title to PlayStation again, but more importantly just optimizing it for PC as well. I still think we are a ways off from this title. I think there is a lot of good information, and it sounds like Site says the producers behind the scenes are talking about what to include in the game, but they just aren't ready to talk about it yet, as they are building up Planetside 2 and helping this new studio work to really understand the franchise and build up goodwill in the community. But really, that's everything we know about Planetside 3. As always, make sure to like and share this video, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.